Good afternoon. My name is Camille Villar, and today I will be speaking about everything that I did for that performance to control my anxiety over playing in front of a crowd this big. And let me tell you, what I did was better than beta blockers. Before we delve into the deeper mechanisms behind performance anxiety and how to control it, I want to do something a little fun. Appearing on the slide before you are lyrics to the well-known national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. I will select one audience member to come up here with me and sing these lyrics out in front of everyone watching. Okay, now, which audience member should I pick? Just kidding. Okay, so I see all of y'all look really nervous. So as I was scanning the audience to choose someone, I saw a lot of you slump in your chairs, avert your eyes, or wipe your sweaty palms on your clothes. What all of you experienced to varying degrees was performance anxiety. Okay, so what is performance anxiety? What did all of you just experience? Well, it can be defined in two ways, emotionally and physiologically. In its most simplest of forms, performance anxiety is a fear. It's a fear of being judged, a fear of being scrutinized, pitied, or laughed at. It is caused whenever you really care about something or whenever you really care about what others think. In other words, performance anxiety is caused when you have high standards for yourself or when others have high standards for you. Everyone experiences performance anxiety. For example, you can feel it before an important test, or you can feel it before an audition, a game of sports, or even before a presentation or speech. Overall, emotionally, everyone experiences performance anxiety, and it applies to all of these scenarios and more. However, to truly understand performance anxiety, an emotional definition isn't enough. The physiological processes within the mind and body must also be understood. Let's trace the pathways behind this response. So it all starts out in the amygdala, which is the part of our brains that's dedicated to processing emotion. When you are under stress, or when you expect to be under stress, the amygdala sends an alert to the hypothalamus, which then relays that message to the autonomic nervous system, which is the part of our nervous system that we can't consciously control. Because the mind is undergoing an emotionally stressful situation, the specific part of the autonomic nervous system that is activated is called the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for triggering something known as the fight or flight response. The sympathetic nervous system causes your adrenal glands to pump a hormone called epinephrine, and you might know it better as adrenaline. When you are under stress for longer periods of time, something called the HPA part of your stress response system, which stands for hypothalamus, pituitary glands, and adrenal glands, prolongs the fight or flight response by causing the adrenal glands to release a hormone called cortisol, also known as the stress hormone. Okay, so now we've envisioned a body that's fully stressed out, with hormones such as epinephrine and cortisol coursing through the veins. These hormones characterize the fight or flight response with various symptoms, which include dry mouth, feeling very hot or very cold, having an upset stomach, shallow breathing, elevated pulse, and more. If you've had performance anxiety before, and everyone has, you've experienced one or more of the symptoms associated with this response. Okay, so you know how performance anxiety works. The first step, be prepared. The second step, have a routine. And the third step, be physically ready. Let's start with the first step, be prepared. One of the best pieces of wisdom I've ever received was from one of my band directors, and he told me that whenever you're nervous, you always revert back to what you do the most. Your mind goes blank, and all you have left are your instincts and habits. Now, I might have passed this off as some pointless piece of advice at the time, but I realized that my band director's words rang true when I saw some particularly hilarious moments in the popular NBC game show Ellen's Game of Games. In this frame from the show, a contestant is being asked to essentially complete a line from the famous and catchy Folgers coffee commercial. Although she couldn't remember the finishing rhyme, Folgers in your cup, it can be deduced from her coffee-related response that, in the back of her mind, she knew the right answer. In this frame from the show, another contestant is being asked to recall simple information that should be taught in schools all across the nation. What are the three branches of the U.S. federal government? Most, without any pressure, would be able to answer quickly and easily: judicial, legislative, and executive. However, this woman couldn't even remember one branch. Both contestants often obviously knew the answers in the back of their minds, but what was causing this lapse in memory? Why couldn't they remember the information when they needed it the most? The answer lies in cortisol, the stress hormone. According to the Cognitive Neuroscience Society, increased levels of this hormone increase the formation of new memories while simultaneously inhibit your ability to recall previous memories. This explains why some of your most vivid memories are of stressful, embarrassing, or emotionally impactful situations. This also explains why it is difficult to recall memories whenever you're in pressure situations. Ellen's Game of Games takes advantage of this natural response. It counts on its contestants forgetting the information as a source of guaranteed hilarity and audience amusement. So how can you defy the effects of cortisol and prove the game show wrong? The answer lies in how you practice. Like my band director said, whenever you're nervous, you always revert back to what you do the most. So why not make it so that what you do the most is what you want to happen during a performance situation? Whether you're studying for a test, rehearsing for a speech, or practicing for an audition, start the first half of your practice session normally. Do your practice problems, run sections of your music, practice lines of your speech, do whatever it is that you need to do to prepare for your upcoming performance. However, as we've seen, cortisol hides these skills whenever you're anxious. Thus, you have to really ingrain the skills you're honing by conducting what I call smart practice. Now, your mind will get bored if you have the same structure to your practice session every single time, and your ability to memorize and really think about what you're doing will begin to plateau. For example, imagine that you're a runner, and you choose to run the exact same path with the exact same turns, bumps, and changes in elevation every single day. Eventually, you will reach what is called an exercise plateau, whenever that route poses no stimulation or challenge whatsoever to your muscles. At that point, practice isn't getting you anywhere. Thus, to prevent a mental plateau, in your session of normal practice, you have to really mix it up. So change up your practice rhythms. Maybe practice the end of a speech before the beginning, or alternate between free response and multiple choice questions instead of doing each in separate chunks. Doing this will allow your brain to tackle the same task at multiple different angles, and it will help keep the information firmly rooted in your mind and more resistant to the forgetful effects of cortisol. Now, once you're done with your first half, move on to your second half, performance practice. So, the first part of your practice was dedicated to making sure you weren't shaken by cortisol mentally. This part is to make sure you weren't shaken by cortisol physically. So, in essence, the second half of your practice is dedicated to simulating a performance situation. Start by elevating your heart rate. Usually I do a quick 30 or 45-second plank, but you can do whatever you want, such as wall sits, or running up and down a flight of stairs, or some jumping jacks. Once you elevate your heart rate, imagine your surroundings, whether that be the audience, the judges, the testing environment, wherever you'll be performing. Practice the routine we're about to create in this second step, and then just go for it. Really ingrain how it feels whenever you're under that fight or flight response with your elevated heart rate. And once you're done with that one run through of your performance, you should be done. Because in the real deal, you'll only get one chance, and you need to get used to dealing with mistakes in the moment and trying to get it right the first time. Okay, so now we know how to practice. Now we have to start thinking about what you'll do actually right before your performance. So, a study conducted by the Chinese University of Hong Kong analyzed the correlation between pre-performance routines and success in NBA free throwers. The results? Those with consistent routines, regardless of length, showed significantly greater success than those whose routines changed every single time. This means that to increase your chances of success when you perform, you have to have a set routine. Examples of routines can be anything you want it to be, such as wearing a certain outfit, or having a lucky pencil, having a certain breathing pattern, or something more unique like Rafael Nadal's pre-serve routine. However, as explained by performance psychologist Noah Kageyama, sports psychologists and experts in performance alike have agreed that one 7-step meditative technique known as centering is one of the most effective pre-performance routines you can have. So let's go over what centering is. The first step is to pick a focal point below eye level. So once you keep your eyes on or near the ground, you yourself will stay grounded in your intention and you will minimize distractions. The second step is to form a goal statement, which is a simple sentence summarizing what you are going to do. With your goal statement, you have to always think in positives. A bad example of a goal statement would be, I will not forget my lines. Now you're thinking about forgetting your lines. So, a good example of a goal statement will be, I will remember all of my lines. That way, you'll think about everything you can do to succeed rather than everything you could potentially do to fail. And then the third step is to breathe. Remember that your hormone-induced fight or flight response will make you want to breathe shallowly and quickly. Try to breathe slowly and deeply to combat this response. As you breathe, scan your body and release extra tension, such as in jittery legs, tightened shoulders, clenched fists, or any muscle that isn't relaxed. Next, find your center, which is where all the energy in your body emanates from. Usually people associate your center with your center of gravity. So once you find it, put all your weight into it and let it ground you in the moment. We're almost there. Step 6 is process cues. So this is essentially imagining what you'll perform like. So you have to envision yourself performing exactly how you want to perform. Imagine how it feels, how your muscles will move, what thoughts will be going through your body. If you can see yourself doing it, then you will do it. And finally, the last step is to channel your energy. Remember all that excess energy released in step 4? Gather it all into your center. Feel it rise up to your head and then blast it out onto the audience, the judges, everyone watching you. Your energy is what makes you powerful. It isn't what makes you nervous. Use it to gain dominance over those watching you and believe that you are in control. Now, centering is just one routine you can have. Of course, you can choose to do that before your performance or any of the other routines that I mentioned earlier. However, whenever you do decide on a routine, make sure you implement it into your practice and make it feel familiar. And don't be afraid to put it into practice right before you perform. You have to do what's best for your success. The last step is to be physically ready. So this includes how you should sleep, what you should eat, and what to do in general the night before and the day of your performance. On the slide, you'll see a chart of the average person's sleep cycle. As you can see, a person nears wakefulness every 90 minutes or so. According to an article by Dr. Amy Gordon, the best time for your body to wake up is at the top of one of these sleep cycles. In other words, it is most natural and easiest for you to wake up in multiples of 90 minutes. Now, applying this to your performance situation, this means you have to sleep exactly 7.5 or 9 hours before you need to wake up, no in between. And knowing that you'll be anxious before that amount of time, get into bed at least 15 minutes before that because it'll take you a little while to fall asleep. So, for example, sleep 7.5 plus 15 minutes before you you're supposed to wake up. And if this sounds silly, it really isn't. You'll wake up whenever your body wants to wake up, and your mind will be in the most prepared state for the day ahead. Now, aside from how you sleep, another important aspect is what you eat. Of course, you can eat whatever makes you happy in the time leading up to your performance, but know that there are foods that are proven to reduce anxiety. A study published by Harvard Medical School gives some insight as to what these foods are. Zinc-rich foods, such as beef, or foods that contain omega-3 fatty acids, such as salmon, are known to lower anxiety. Also, anxiety levels are inversely related to antioxidant state. So the more antioxidants you consume, then the lesser your anxiety. Foods that are rich in antioxidants include vegetables and fruit. Of course, you can add these foods to your diet, but you have to adapt it to whatever you personally need to perform. For example, I'm a wind player. I can't eat greasy foods before my audition because it will interfere with my mouth and therefore my playing ability. So you have to make that judgment on your own as to which foods will fit you best in your diet. Okay, so the night before your performance. Speaking from personal experience, before your performance, you should cut back on the screen time. Playing too many video games or watching too many movies the night before your performance will make it hard for your eyes to concentrate on the performance task the next day. If you do need to look at a screen for extended periods of time, be sure to periodically apply a warm compress to your eyes to prevent them from straining. Also, one of the most important things to remember the night before your performance is don't practice too much. So a lot of you will be nervous and you'll be cramming your practice, but honestly, you won't get anywhere further than where you were a few days ago. So you have to take it easy. Also, one of the most important things, if you practice too much the night before your performance and you make a mistake, that mistake will most likely haunt you the next day and you'll be liable to repeat it. And finally, the night before, sleep at the correct time so you can wake up 7.5 or 9 hours whenever you have to wake up. And finally, the day of your performance. It's the big day. So, obviously, don't practice too much for the same reasons as mentioned earlier. But the most important thing to remember the day of your performance is the effects that cortisol has on your body. Remember the physiology we went over earlier and what cortisol can do to your body. If you perform enough times, you'll get used to knowing what symptoms you personally have in performance situations. For example, I get really cold whenever I get nervous, so I usually bring hand warmers to my auditions. Okay, so we went over all the 3 steps, and let's quickly review them. First step, be prepared. Divide your practice session into 2 halves, normal practice and performance practice, where you elevate your heart rate and simulate a performance situation. Have a routine. Whether your routine be something meditative, such as centering, or whether it be something else, make sure that you implement it into your practice and practice it until it feels familiar and it'll give you a sense of comfort during your audition. And the third, be physically ready. Know how to sleep, what to eat, and remind yourself the effects cortisol will have on your body so that you can be in your best physical shape. Once you follow these 3 steps, you will most likely see that it'll have a positive effect in your life. Whether that positive effect be seen whenever you ace the big tests, nail the daunting audition, give the lengthy speech, or sing the Star-Spangled Banner in front of everyone watching, I know that this will help you in a way that is natural, satisfying, empowering, and definitely better than beta blockers. Thank you.